Welcome to World Pulse. New, please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The news broke, catching the world off guard and sending ripples through every corner of the nation. It was like a thunderclap on a clear day, sudden, jarring, and impossible to ignore. The air seemed to crackle with uncertainty, as people everywhere paused to process what had just happened. In Washington, D.C., newsrooms buzzed with frantic energy, phones ringing off the hook as journalists scrambled for details. On Wall Street, trading floors erupted in chaos, with traders shouting into phones and watching numbers tumble and soar in real time. The Supreme Court's verdict had landed with the force of a political earthquake. The global tariffs, once a cornerstone of President Trump's economic policy and a symbol of his administration's approach to international trade, had been struck down in a sweeping decision. Years of debate, negotiation, and controversy were suddenly rendered moot. The decision sent shockwaves worldwide. In capitals across the globe, world leaders gathered in urgent meetings, their faces etched with concern. Citizens watched the news unfold on public screens, trying to make sense of what this meant for their jobs, their businesses, and their futures. Financial markets from Asia to Europe reacted instantly, with investors scrambling to adjust to the new reality. For years, tariffs had defined America's trade stance: bold, disruptive, and fiercely defended by the administration. They had sparked protests, ignited debates among economists, and reshaped the flow of goods across oceans. Now all of that was in question. With a single historic ruling, the Supreme Court had upended years of policy and signaled a dramatic shift in global commerce. The gavel's echo was felt not just in the courtroom, but in boardrooms and marketplaces around the world. Within the White House, disbelief quickly turned to urgent determination. Advisors huddled in tense discussions, drafting memos and strategizing next steps as the president demanded answers and a plan to respond. The battle for the future of American trade was entering a new, unpredictable phase, one that would test the resolve of leaders, the resilience of markets, and the adaptability of a nation facing a turning point in its economic story. To truly grasp the court's decision and its far-reaching implications, it's important to first understand the concept of tariffs and the role they have played in shaping economic policy throughout history. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on goods that are brought into a country from abroad. When a product crosses a border, the government can impose a fee, making that imported item more expensive for consumers and businesses within the country. The main idea behind tariffs is to give an advantage to domestic producers by making foreign goods less competitive in terms of price. This can help local industries grow, protect jobs, and even foster new businesses that might otherwise struggle to compete with cheaper imports. By encouraging people to buy American-made products, tariffs are designed to keep money circulating within the national economy, supporting local workers and communities. During his presidency, Donald Trump made tariffs a cornerstone of his economic agenda. He argued that other countries, especially China, were engaging in unfair trade practices, such as dumping cheap goods or subsidizing their own industries, which he claimed put American workers and companies at a disadvantage. Tariffs in this context became both a tool and a symbol. They were used as leverage in tough trade negotiations, signaling to other nations that the U.S. was serious about protecting its own interests. At the same time, they represented a broader push for economic nationalism, a belief that the country should prioritize its own industries and workers above all else. The Trump administration believed that by imposing tariffs, they could encourage companies to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States, breathe new life into struggling towns, and restore a sense of pride in American industry. For many Americans, tariffs became a rallying cry, a promise to put American workers first, protect their livelihoods, and stand up to foreign competition. However, not everyone saw tariffs in a positive light. For some businesses, especially those that rely on imported materials or goods, tariffs meant higher costs and difficult choices. Consumers, too, often felt the impact through rising prices on everyday items, from electronics to groceries. Ultimately, the debate over tariffs was about more than just economics. It was about national identity, global competition, and the best way to secure a prosperous future. The policy sparked passionate arguments on both sides, dividing the nation on the question of how to move forward in an increasingly interconnected world. The legal battle began with businesses caught in the crossfire of the trade war. Companies argued the tariffs were causing financial harm, forcing tough choices: absorb costs or pass them to customers. Their lawsuit challenged the president's authority to impose tariffs using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. They claimed the law was never meant for long-term trade wars. Lower courts issued conflicting rulings, setting the stage for the Supreme Court. The case raised fundamental questions. How much power does the president have over trade? When is an economic issue a national emergency? The Supreme Court's answer would reshape the balance of power for years to come. As the case reached the Supreme Court, the nation split along economic and constitutional lines. The stakes were high, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. People from all walks of life were deeply invested in the outcome, knowing it would shape the future of the country. Supporters, manufacturers, and unions argued tariffs protected American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition. They believed that without these tariffs, American factories would close, leading to massive job losses and economic decline. For them, tariffs were a shield against the global market's volatility. They saw tariffs as essential for national security and economic survival. Protecting domestic industries was not just an economic issue, but a matter of national pride and security. They argued that a strong industrial base was crucial for the country's independence and resilience. Opponents, including major businesses, warned tariffs raised costs, hurt competitiveness, and risked jobs in larger sectors. They pointed out that higher costs for raw materials would lead to higher prices for consumers, making American products less attractive, both domestically and internationally. They argued the administration was misusing emergency powers, bypassing Congress, and setting a dangerous precedent. This, they claimed, was an overreach that threatened the balance of power and the democratic process. The fear was that such actions could lead to unchecked executive authority. The debate was about more than economics. It was about the limits of presidential power. It raised fundamental questions about the role of the executive branch and its relationship with the legislative branch. The implications of the case extended far beyond the immediate issue of tariffs. Both sides saw the case as a defining moment for America's future. It was a battle for the soul of the nation, with each side believing that their victory would ensure a better path forward. The public was deeply divided, with passionate arguments being made in homes, schools, and workplaces across the country. The Supreme Court would decide not just on tariffs, but on the very structure of American government. Their decision would have lasting implications, potentially reshaping the balance of power and the future of American democracy. The nation watched and waited, knowing that the outcome would be historic. The Supreme Court's decision was decisive and stunning. The justices ruled the administration had exceeded its authority under IEPA. IEPA, they said, was for true emergencies, not for waging long-term trade wars. The ruling invalidated the tariffs and reaffirmed that only Congress can enact sweeping trade policies. The verdict crossed ideological lines, showing rare consensus on limiting executive power. The court made clear this was about process and law, not the merits of tariffs. The separation of powers had been powerfully reaffirmed. The ruling's impact rippled across the globe. International partners welcomed the decision, hoping for a return to stable, rules-based trade. American businesses relying on imports celebrated, anticipating lower costs and renewed competitiveness. But industries protected by tariffs, like steel and aluminum, faced uncertainty and disappointment. For consumers, the change promised gradual relief from higher prices. The decision marked a turning point, but not everyone was ready to celebrate. The global economy braced for the next chapter. The effects would be felt in boardrooms, factories, and households alike. The administration didn't back down after the court's defeat. Instead, it pivoted to new legal tools to keep protectionist policies alive. The White House turned to Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act and Section 301 of the Trade Act, laws with firmer legal footing. New investigations targeted critical sectors like semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, laying groundwork for fresh tariffs. These new tariffs could be even more targeted and disruptive than before. The administration's message? The trade war isn't over, it's evolving. Businesses and consumers braced for another wave of uncertainty. The era of trade conflict was far from finished. The future of American trade remains uncertain. New tariffs are already in the pipeline, targeting goods from lumber to furniture. The public is divided. Some support protectionism, others are weary of rising prices and instability. The administration has threatened even broader tariffs, signaling more escalation ahead. The Supreme Court set limits on emergency powers, but the trade battle continues under new laws. Americans can expect more volatility, higher prices, and ongoing debate over the nation's economic direction. The fundamental clash between globalism and America First is unresolved. Trade will remain a central, contentious issue for years to come.